Hi everyone, welcome back to GameMaker Cast. Last time we left off, we're able to click on our coin and generate some money with our auto clicker. In this video, let's work on the auto clicker portion itself, which is going to involve a few things. Number one, we're going to have to purchase the auto clicker. Number two, we're going to create the auto clicker itself. So with that said, let's start off with the first one. This is going to be how we purchase the auto clicker. Now, I've already separated out the user interface into multiple objects. However, if I were to redesign the system, I would probably start looking at the new UI layers that were introduced in GameMaker. But with the way that this is going to work just fine. It's easy and simple to do. So the first thing we're going to open up is the OUI Shop Auto Clicker. This is going to go over how we actually purchase the auto clicker. In the create event, you can see that we have a few things. We have a base cost, and we also then have a cost associated with this actual auto clicker. The reason we have two is because we're going to be using a mathematical formula to figure out the cost of each auto clicker. Now don't worry, this is going to be too math intense, but this formula is used quite a lot when dealing with idle clickers. The formula is going to look like this. We're going to take our base cost, and then we are going to multiply it, and we are going to call it a function called power. We're going to take the power of 1.15 times the number of auto clickers that we have. So what this means basically is if our power, we are taking 1.15 and we had 5 auto clickers, it would end up looking like 1.15 times 1.15 times 1.15, etc., until we get to 5 times. Using a formula like this, all we really have to do is play with the first number in order to make it work properly. Now, we can leave 1.15 there, but how do we get the number of auto clickers? Well, if we return to the O init game, you can see that we have a global variable. This one isn't named properly, but it's fine. We're going to name it generators and we'll keep it as is. So what we can do is we can take the global.generators and we can plug that into our power function. Now the other thing that I want to do, because I will forget down the line, is I'm going to return to the O init game and I'm going to change my currency value from 0 to 100 just so I can buy a generator at the start. Now the next thing that we have to do is the left click or left release. So add a new event and go down to mouse, and I'm going to choose the left release. This is going to end up running any code that we have in here once we release the button over that particular button. The first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to check to see if we have enough money. So we'll check our global.currency value and we'll say if we have more or equal to the cost of this particular item. Then what we're going to do is inside that if statement, we'll remove the cost from our total value. Next, we need to increase the generator count. Again, that's just a global variable, and we'll add 1 to it. And we also then need to instantiate one of our O clickers, or O click objects in this case. It doesn't matter where we put it, but we'll use an instance create depth. And like I said, it doesn't matter where we put it because we don't have a sprite for this. We just need the object in the game. Now, before we run our game, we're going to have to somehow update the cost of this particular widget. Now, right now in the create event, we have the functionality to do that. We could easily take that entire line and we could paste it into our click. However, to keep things simple, I think let's create a function to do that. Let's call this function calculate cost. Inside the function, all we'll do is we'll copy and paste our cost formula that we have in there, and then we just need to make sure we call that calculate cost at the end of our create event. Now with that done, all we really need to do is go back to the left release, and we need to call that function once we have purchased an auto clicker. This should automatically update our text and update the formula that we're using. Now, the second thing we need to do is the auto clicker itself. This is going to be pretty easy. First, let's open up the O auto click object and let's add a new event. For this event, we're going to be adding a create event. In here, we're going to be using a cooldown system. I've already included the cooldown library, so it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier. Let's create a new variable, and in here let's just call it cooldown. And we'll set it to the cooldown library, and you can see that it will accept two parameters. The first parameter is how long the cooldown should wait, and this is going to be in seconds. The second parameter we'll ignore, but it takes a function that can be called when it's been completed. Now, for the first parameter, how do we get 2 seconds based off of how fast our game is running? Well, I have included a nice handy script called getSeconds, where we'll pass in the number of seconds that we want to return. You can see here all this script is doing is getting our current FPS value and then multiplying it by the number of seconds we need. So if our game is running at 60 frames per second, we multiply that by 2, we'll end up with 120 frames or 2 seconds in the end. So we'll return to that create event, and let's add the getSeconds function inside our cooldown. Next, let's add the step event. And in this step event, what we want to do is have the cooldown.update fire. This is just going to handle everything within that library, so we don't really have to do much. Now we can check to see if our cooldown is ready by just using the ready function. And if it is, let's start our cooldown all over. So this is going to continuously run every 2 seconds. Now, once our cooldown has been fired, all we really need to do is simulate that left click on our coin object. Now remember, in the previous video, we set up a signal bus. So this is going to be extremely easy to do with the systems that we have. To access our signal bus, let's access it via the global variable. We'll say global.signalBus, and let's call the emit function. Now, what do we want to emit? We have everything in an enumerator, so it's pretty easy to find. We'll just say signal dot, and we'll choose the click coin, and then we won't pass any data into this function. And that's it. That's all we actually need to do. We don't have to worry about whether or not our coin is created. We've decoupled everything because if we take a look at our coin is using the signal bus to listen for that event. So whatever object says or yells out that event, it's automatically going to get picked up. So in turn, we've already hooked up our auto clickers with our left click function. So let's test it. Let's run the game and let's buy one auto clicker. We should see that our $75 changed, our current value went down, and also the generators went up by 1. The other thing that you should notice is every 2 seconds, we have a value being added to our current currency. Now, we don't really have any feedback yet, but that's going to come later. But for now, let's click on our coin to see if we can get enough money to buy a second generator. So we're just going to click away until we get just enough. And I will buy a second generator. And you can see that our generator statistics went up by 1, the cost changed, and now we are getting money quicker. And with that, I think this is going to be a good place to wrap it up. We have 2 powerful systems being used, our cooldown system and the signal bus, which is making our lives a lot easier for games like this, and it will work on other games as well. In the next video, we'll handle the rest of our UI, and then we'll start adding some juice to the game to provide the user with some feedback that things are actually happening. So with that, thank you for watching. Once again, thanks for watching. A huge shout out to my Patreon supporters in no particular order. Mika, Matthew, GameMaker Community, Sean, Midnight, Clay, Mark, Victor, Sapikai, Thomas, JujuB84, and Review the Future. Once again, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video.